Thanks for taking the leadership style assessment. Now, let's find out about your leadership style. Okay, looking at your scores, I can see that you've got a pragmatist leadership style. Well, what does that really mean? Well, pragmatists have high standards. They expect themselves and their employees to meet those standards. Pragmatists tend to be driven, competitive, and they value hitting their goals above all else. They can tend to be bold thinkers, unafraid of taking the road less traveled, even when others struggle or feel anxious about it, and they're hard driving and tend to like smashing through obstacles. Working for the pragmatist, as you might imagine, it can be difficult but rewarding. Working for the pragmatist, usually not for the faint of heart or thin-skinned, but the opportunities to learn and become expert under the pragmatist tutelage tend to be second to none. It's like working for a master artist, like having an apprenticeship to a professor. There's the potential for exceptional intellectual growth, but there's also the potential for burnout and getting criticized. If you think about some pragmatists throughout history, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, for example, was a pragmatist. Jeff Bezos at Amazon today is a pragmatist. Now, let's peel this back and dive a little bit deeper into this. There are four major aspects of leadership that we look at when we're diagnosing a leadership style: feeling, structure, directiveness, and challenge. Okay, feeling basically means I care about people's motivators and demotivators. I care deeply about their personal needs. Structure means I emphasize formal procedures, rules, policies, etc. Directiveness means that I maintain, as the leader, final decision-making authority. I tell employees exactly how I would like work to be completed. And challenge means that I'm pushing employees to develop their weaknesses and not just do what they're already good at. And it means I'm pushing employees to give maximal 100% effort. Now, where does a pragmatist fall on this? Well, as you can see, pragmatists tend to be very low on the feeling side, moderate on structure and directiveness, and the highest of any leadership style on challenge. So, what does that basically tell you? Well, because pragmatists tend to be so high on challenging, it's going to be a focus on getting maximal effort, maximal results. Listen, if you're feeling a little tired right now, suck it up, because we have to go achieve this big goal. When there is a really big goal, as the late Steve Jobs used to say, we need to make a little dent in the universe. Well, the dent in the universe aspect of this, that's where the pragmatist leadership style really comes in. So there's not a lot of focus on employees' personal needs or building a highly collaborative environment where people love one another. It doesn't mean the pragmatists are mean or nasty, far from it. It's just that they care a lot more about hitting the goals than they do about making sure that everybody loves one another. So, where do pragmatists work well? Where does that leadership style tend to really shine? Well, again, as you can imagine, when we're trying to make a dent in the universe, when there are really big goals to achieve, that's when the pragmatist really shines. Why? Because it's all about the challenge. To go and make that dent in the universe, to do what Apple did, for example, or what Amazon has done, yeah, it takes a high degree of challenge. And if you look at, employee reports coming out of Amazon or Apple, you can see, there's a pretty good dose of pragmatism leadership style in both those organizations. When employees are comfortable taking some risks, when employees are ambitious, when they're like, I am good with pushing the envelope a little bit, that's when the pragmatist tends to shine. But I also have to tell you that for the pragmatist style to work really well, your employees have to really respect us. Employees have to respect the leader, and there has to be some real opportunity to learn. Otherwise, what ends up happening is the pragmatist leadership style feels like I'm pushing, but what's the payoff? I'm pushing, but if I'm not getting to learn anything, if this isn't preparing me to take that next rung, well then what's the point of this? Remember I mentioned that this is kind of like apprenticing to a master artisan, or, I want to be a great pianist. Well, I have to go learn from the master pianist, and it's going to be hard, but someday I'm going to be on stage at Carnegie Hall. Well, listen, if there's no opportunity for me to ever get to Carnegie Hall, I'm going to start to look at this challenge thing and go, I don't know that I really care about that so much. So when you've got ambitious people, people that like big challenges, when you have people that like taking some risks, when there's big opportunities to learn and there are big goals to achieve, that's when the pragmatist style is going to work really well. But what are some warning signs that we're maybe pushing it a little too far? Well, one big one is if you as the leader walk into a room and everybody stops talking like, "Swoop," that's a sign that we might be pushing things a little too far. Why? Because sometimes pushing people and challenging people can start to turn into people being afraid of us. We do not want people being afraid of us. We want people to respect us. We want people to say, if you tell me to take the hill, boss, I'm going to take the hill. That's what we want, but we don't want people to be paralyzed with fear because that's going to erode their on-the-job performance. So if we walk into a room and everybody just goes zoop, or we're having a meeting and we ask for people's suggestions and nobody gives us anything, that's another warning sign. Another warning sign would be if we find ourselves doing 60% plus of the talking in a meeting, it's never really a great sign. The whole purpose of a meeting is to bring smart people into the room and solicit all sorts of great input. But if we find that we're doing, 2/3, more than half of the talking is a pretty good rule in a meeting, that's another sign that we may have pushed a little too far and we've gone too much one directional and we don't have enough back and forth interplay between our people and us. Finally, if you see that your employees are getting a little freaked out, if you see signs of burnout, that's another sign that we may have pushed it just a touch too far, that our challenge score is, it's up here, but we may need to add in a bit more of the feeling score or dial back on the challenge a little bit, increase the feeling a little bit, and dial down some of the structure and directiveness. All of those are possibilities. Now, who works really well with a pragmatist? Well, if this is a person that, and you can see this with the regression line here, that if you've got somebody that really likes to work at something, even if it's a struggle, even if they're not already good at it, but they're the kind of person that says, I love a challenge, I'm going to work at something and stick to it no matter what, no matter how painful it is, I'm going to push until I finally master it. That is the epitome of the personality that loves working for the pragmatist. You can imagine if you've got somebody that's like, you know what, good enough is good enough. I don't need to love my job. I don't need to push myself. I don't need to learn. I'm not ambitious. I'm not trying to get ahead. That's somebody that is not going to love working for the pragmatist nearly as much. But somebody that likes the challenge, that is ambitious, that likes pushing themselves, that's somebody that is really going to thrive with the pragmatist leadership style. So be mindful of where the pragmatist leadership style works well. There are a lot of cases where the leadership style of the pragmatist works exceptionally well, but also you have to be mindful of those areas where it doesn't work quite as well.